Hello and welcome back for the video number 3 for the day 3 chapters. We have finished chapter 1, chapter 2 and chapter 3 with the day 3 video. This is additional to day 3 video which includes the whole chapter of project stakeholder. I have compiled all together to avoid the repetition. So let's begin the today's topic, which is about project stakeholder management or about stakeholders. So who is the stakeholders? We said anyone who is being impacted or will be impacted by the project will be considered as stakeholder. It's being impacted or will be impacted by the project or its outcome. It could be internal or external to the organizations. The major type of stakeholders are the sponsors. The sponsor is a person who is responsible to provide you the resources for the project. So customers normally hires internal or external sponsor. They provide them all the resources they need. Ultimately, sponsor hires a project manager, organization, the seller, and then sponsor work in collaboration with the project manager to achieve the project objectives. The sponsor provides a technical and financial resources and also help in decision making, while project manager works with him with all the authority. Additionally, if the project manager cannot cope up with the organization political things and those delays, so he can use a sponsor as an escalation path. Finally, the sponsor is also responsible for the transitioning of deliverable from project to operations. The other one, the other very common stakeholders are customer, customer who is paying for the product, users who will be using the product, functional managers who will provide the technical expertise and resources throughout the project, sellers, the executing organization who is working as a main contractor, who will be getting the project and then they will be executing it. Sometimes the project organizations cannot do all the project by themselves, so they do in joint ventures. So we call them business partners, where they share the part of the contract or the full contract. These are very common roles available in almost in all the projects. There's nothing called almost, they are available in all the projects. If you're talking about agile projects, so these roles are actually divided into three categories: product owner, scrum master or the team leader, and develop development team. In predictive projects, sponsor is the person from the external organization, while product owner working for the business requirement inside the seller organization. So it means he is the voice of customer. He is responsible to achieve the project business requirement. Scrum master is responsible. Scrum master, we call it team leader, coach, agile coach. He is responsible for providing the compliance, for enforcing that compliance, also for serving. He plays the servant leadership role to help the team members whatever they need, remove the obstacles, remove the impediments, facilitate them for the training or mentoring required. And development team, we have two types of team, two types of talent: I-shaped team or T-shaped team. I-shaped who are the subject matter expert, while in agile we have T-shaped people because they are called as generalizing specialists, which means they are good in one thing. Additionally, they can do further things also. So this T-shaped team is capable of doing all the work by themselves. Plus, they can resolve their conflicts. They can find their own critical thinking. They can do anything. If they could not do it, they will take the help of Scrum Master. And the good thing is, we can keep rotating the Scrum Master throughout the project. Like this week, as based on weekly iterations. This week, Mr. A is the Scrum Master. In the next iteration, Mr. B, Mr. C in the next, and so on. So ultimately, everyone is learning, and everyone is learning the capacity of leadership skills also. So that's why we call it the Scrum Master in this agile is working as a servant leader. These are very common roles which are into categories. Product owners, normally the business analyst. Scrum Master, kind of project manager. Stakeholders, users like project directors, architects who is providing resources, testers, developers, they could be the part of team. So whenever we start a project, it's very, very important to identify the stakeholders based on their level of interest, what they are expecting from us, what is their importance in the project, and how they can influence the project to learn, to find out, to determine, to identify. We perform a stakeholder analysis with the help of many tools and techniques which are going to come later on. So you can understand how it is easy to classify them, how it is easy to differentiate them, how it is easy to prioritize them if you follow those techniques. So let's go. That is what the predictive part of the project, where we have identified stakeholders. We should identify as early as possible. And this is one of the process which is always continuous. It will stay from initiating before closing. So you can identify all the stakeholders. You cannot identify all the stakeholders at the time of closing. So as much as you can identify, and you can keep going at the end of each phase, or at the beginning of each phase, you can identify new stakeholders, or you can remove old stakeholders if they are not required. The tools and techniques, we have the same thing: brainstorming, the quick generation of ideas. We have another one. So once we produce it, we will get the stakeholder register. I'll show you how does it look like. There was one interesting thing which was there, so I thought to share with you guys here also. We have brainstorming, a data gathering technique to generate ideas in a quick or shortest time. We have brainwriting. If you are going to make a brainstorming session more organized, so brainwriting means we'll provide them some questions before they come into meeting, so they already have the know-how, and then we can start the process instead of wasting the time during the brainstorming sessions. So with the help of brainstorming or brainwriting, we will try to identify the stakeholders and their needs. These are some categories of stakeholders. Category, if they have only one, whether power, whether legitimacy, whether urgency, we call them latent stakeholder. So if it is power only, we call them latent stakeholder. Their influence is considered as low, and we call them dormant because they are not going to harm too much. Legitimacy, they are latent, but they call it discretionary option. Still, their probability is low. Urgency, they are also latent, demanding, but they can influence it low. But as soon as they have two categories, power, they have the power and they have the legitimacy, so they become dominant and their influence will become high. If it is power and urgency, for sure they're expectant. Again, they will have medium or high influence on your project. If it is legitimacy plus urgency, so it means they will go in the dangerous subclass. They need the help of dominant or dependent stakeholders in order to cope up. And if you have power plus legitimacy plus urgency, for sure they are always demanding and their level of influence is high. We can show this like this, or we can choose the salience model to show that who have power, who have legitimacy, and who have urgency. And based upon that, you can find out who is capable of what. If you don't want to do this, or if you want to go further, there is another power interest grid to show the stakeholders. If you look at it, we have managed closely, keep satisfied, keep informed, monitor. In the manage closely category, we have normally the sponsors, executive management. They have high power and high interest. They have here what? High power and low interest, keep them satisfied, like neighboring districts, transportations, shopping centers. Keep informed, resource working projects, like company employees who is working as a team. Monitor, government officials, competitors, so they are low influence and low interest. So this is low to high and this is low to high. So that is what we have our power and interest grid, and those are the categories which are inside them. So you can make your stakeholder map with the help of power interest grid or silence model or stakeholder cube to identify whom you have to monitor closely, keep them informed, monitor, or just keep satisfied. The direction of influence, how you can be influenced or can get your project influenced, the upward, the senior management. It is actually the part of communications also, upward, downward, outward, and sidewards also. Downward, the teams contributing to knowledge. Outwards, the external stakeholders. Sidewards, your team or other peers of project managers. We can perform a stakeholder analysis based on their interest, right, ownership, knowledge, contribution, and ultimately we will be able to have this stakeholder register. So after becoming the project manager, your first task is always what? Identify stakeholder. If you are joining in the middle of the project, like previous project manager left, so in that case, for sure it was created. So your first task will be to review this stakeholder register in order to understand what are their needs and expectations, because it contains their names, their positions, roles, contact informations, requirements, expectation, influence, and classifications. We'll see classification now in the next few slides. Then once you have the stakeholder register, now you will plan their engagement based on their stakeholder engagement assessment metrics, how you want them to be and how they are currently doing it. Because of any reasons, if they are not being engaged, or to find out from the lesson learned, we will use all the tools and techniques possibly, like SWOT analysis, root cause analysis, assumptions and constraint analysis, to keep our stakeholder engaged, because stakeholder engagement is more important than doing any other thing. Apart of that, when you will be doing the plan stakeholder engagement assessment, so we have the categories of those. We call them unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, leading. Unaware, they don't know how they will be impacted by the project. Resistant, whatever you will do, they will go against your decision making. Neutral, they are not doing anything. Supportive, they sit with you and provide the decision making. Leading, they go beyond you to support you, but sometimes it becomes more dangerous than any other thing. So we want, they have classifications as unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, leading. So their current engagements, and then we have desired engagement. What is our desired engagement? That everyone should be based on the supportive classification of stakeholders. Once you have planned their engagement, and you will continually reviewing it throughout the project before ending the project phases or before starting the new project phases. While executing, you will manage their expectations, and if they are not being met, you will use change requests, which means if their priorities change, if their identifications change, if their requirements change, to keep them connected, you will always collect their feedback by using your communication skills. And by using the conflict management techniques and negotiation techniques, you will get your work done. And for sure, to get the projects done in a better way with less conflicts, we will always impose ground rules. Ground rules is the best thing to keep you people out of the conflict as much as possible, because everything is written. We don't need to go and tell everyone that this is our policy. To engage the stakeholders, your softer skills will help you a lot. The good you are at your best skills, the better the engagement is. So you can use your ground rules to find out decision making for issue resolutions during the sprint planning, review meetings, retrospect meetings, so you can negotiate well. You can keep the things aligned. No need to go and bypass the project protocols. Let everyone follow those protocols, whether your team members, whether your external stakeholders. And while managing, monitor their engagements. If they are not being met, you have to produce a change request. Maybe a previous stakeholder left, maybe their priorities change. So with the help of change requests, you can produce changes, or you can make changes in your project documents, for sure after the approval of change control board or the required authorities. So that was all for the project management. Project stakeholder management review. This was our chapter number 13 actually, and it is a part of our day 3 review, because the day 3 review contains the questions from from the stakeholder management as well as from the role of the project manager. Tomorrow we will have the project integration management, where I'll go in more details. So see you in the next video for the project integration management. Thanks very much. Wish you best of luck.